Hey everyone, Grandmaster Ben Feingold. Somebody said that they wanted to see Velimirovic attack, and unfortunately for that person, unless they know me well, I only have black in the Velimirovic attack, and I have actually some funny stories about it. So if you wanted to see white win, that's too bad. Although I did lose a game to Sicilian, which I'll probably show in another video. But anyway, most of you don't know what the Velimirovic attack is, so let's get it going here. This was in 1999, and there's actually a reason why this was 1999. So here, the two main moves for white are bishop c4 and bishop g5. So bishop c4 is how we start the Velimirovic attack if white wants to castle queenside. Okay, and castles. All right, and after castles, usually white plays bishop b3. Not always, but usually. Because, you know, knight a5, knight e5, b5. So get the bishop to somewhere safe. All right. There's probably been 5,000 Grandmaster games in this position in the last 40 years. And this comes from the Sozin. And when Fischer played the Sozin, which some people call the Fischer Sozin, he castled kingside and then would play f4, f5 with his bishop on c4. So let's see. Latest version of Skype. Yay. Okay. Now, the reason this game was played in 1999 was I was on an airplane from Detroit to Los Angeles to play, I think, in the Continental Open, I think. I could be wrong. But anyway, I think that was where it was. And I brought one book on the plane. It was a hardcover book from the 70s that was on the Sozin in descriptive notation. So that's pretty funny. And I remember opening the book on the plane, and I opened it to a position where this was the position. The queen was on, it said queen to king 1, although it didn't say queen to king 1. When I looked at the diagram, I just thought the diagram had the queen on the wrong square, because that made more sense to me. And then I noticed that that was black's last move. And I was like, what? Why would you play queen e8? Okay, and the answer is they didn't play queen e8, they played queen to king 1. Okay, and this actually has many normal ideas. So first of all, the main move is queen c7. And queen e8 has similar ideas, but there's a little bit extra. Queen e8 was invented by Alexander Belyavsky in the early 70s, 72, 73, 74. And the book, I think, was written in 75, so pretty common line. Okay, and the idea is, number one, we're defending our knight on c6, which queen c7 also does. And number two, we are getting off of this file with the rook. And number three is more complicated. There's a lot of positions where white plays g4, g5, queen h5. And sometimes with the white queen on h5, black can actually move his f-pawn and discovered attack the white queen in a position where if the white queen wasn't there, white would either take on f6 or take on f5 en passant, but you can't do that because your queen's hanging. So this is sort of to make queen h5 less strong. Okay. Anyway, I read the chapter on queen to king 1, and I got to play it in the tournament that I was flying to. And I played it several times. I lost to Sam Sevian a couple of years ago, and I've won my other 7 games or so. Anyway, I have 3 games to show you to start from this position. The first 2 are from 1999, and the last one's from last year. If you've watched my videos from the St. Louis Chess Club, you've seen possibly all these games before, but maybe not. Okay, so rook g1 is the main move. White wants to play g4, g5. Knight d7 is the main move, because after g4, g5, you want to move your knight to the queen side anyway. Okay. This guy that I'm playing, he's about 2,300 FIDE, but I never heard of him. I guess he lives in California. So, okay, knight c5, and then queen h5. Okay, as I said, b4. Now, the other idea behind queen e8, which I forgot to tell you, was that, because I forgot. In fact, it happens in every game, so I probably shouldn't forget it. The queen defends a4, and this actually helps. This makes it harder for white to play knight a4, because sometimes you lose a piece when you do that. Okay, so after b4, he played knight e2, and I took the bishop. I guess I could take the pawn on e4, but I'm worried about getting checkmated, so I took the bishop so I would have less chance of getting checkmated. Took with the a pawn, which I'm sure is a mistake. I think generally, in a lot of these positions, the right move is to take with the c pawn. And by taking with the c pawn, it's very hard for black to get a big attack on the a and b files. And I can't really get attack on the c file because he just plays king b1. So I think usually c takes is right, but it's very rarely played. Okay, a takes, knight takes, g6. He moved his queen, and e5. So I'm worried about two things with his queen on h6. One is queen h7 mate, and one is the bishop gets to d4 on the diagonal. Well, okay, e5 blocks the diagonal forever, and it also defends all these squares that potentially his rook could go to checkmate me. So it's hard to play his rook to the h file now, and it's hard to play bishop d4. So I basically stopped his attack. So I stopped his attack. I have the two bishops, and I'm ready to play a5, a4. Okay, so he moved his knight, and I play queen c6, threatening his e4 pawn. My queen's really not useful anymore on e8 to do that thing with his queen on h5. So queen c6 does a couple of things. I want to take on e4. But also, when I put a rook on the c file, I'm threatening queen takes c2 mate. And if I play bishop e6, I'm attacking the b3 pawn. So queen c6 does a lot of stuff. f3. Okay, and I'm sure that white's lost after f3. Obviously, you know, I could say never play f3, which I've never said before, but I'm saying it now. But maybe white's already has a terrible position. Maybe. But f3 loses a tempo and doesn't help white. So you can't do that when you have opposite side castling and people are playing for mate. You can't just lose a tempo. Okay, so bishop e6 threatens b3. And he played knight d4. I mean, if he plays king b1, I'm going to play probably rook fc8, threatening queen c2. I'll play bishop f8, kicking his queen out. I'll play a5, a4. I don't really see what white's doing. So he sacked a piece. Okay, and I move my queen because if I take the piece and he takes back, now he's got an attack. And now he's not kidding. I could never play f6, but then he takes and he has rook g6 check tricks. Yeah, I'm sort of scared. Okay, so I didn't take the piece. I played queen d7. And again, I don't know how he's going to attack me. I don't see what his plan is. He took, but now when I take with the pawn, I'm attacking his f3 pawn. And more importantly, if somehow he magically attacks h7, you know, his rook gets the h file, I have rook f7. So I'm not really worried about getting mated anymore. Okay, he played queen h3, defending his pawn on f3, and his queen really needs to get back into the game. It's certainly helping him on h6. a5, obviously to play a4. Rook g2, that defends his pawn on c2. Maybe he wants to double rooks on the d file. a4, takes. King to d2. It's funny, I played a game with Matthew Larson, I'm going to say 3 years ago. Pretty good guess. And he castled queenside in some other opening. And he played king to d2, and I was shocked. I was like, king d2? It turned out king d2 was the best computer move. And I was losing that game, but I won. Story of my life. Here, king d2 is just trying to run away from my attack, but you can run, but you can't hide. Rook a2, king e1, chomp. Rook a1, setting up for the next game. Queen c8. I want to play rook c2. I want to play queen c3 check. Rook d2, b3. He took. Rook takes b3. Everything wins for black. I mean, I'm a pawn up, and my king is safer than his. King f2. Rook takes. A brilliant sacrifice. No, I'm just kidding. And he resigned because if he takes my rook, everything wins. Bishop g5 wins. Queen c3 wins. Probably if it's his move, I'm winning. So yeah. So after rook takes e3, he resigned. So his king just got totally exposed, and my king was perfectly safe. And that's actually what I'm going for in an opposite side castling position. I don't care about sacking the exchange or sacking a pawn or anything like that. I just want a safe king against an unsafe king. And then I figure I have good practical chances, even if the computer doesn't like my position, which this game it did. That was my first game ever with queen e8. Let's look at the next game. If there is a next game. Is there a next game? Save. Okay. Who knows if they did this right? Let's see. Okay, so far it's right. Okay, so this game I know I showed in a lecture. I don't think I showed it on my YouTube channel, but I've shown it in St. Louis or other places. This was one of my best swindles ever. I'm playing a Grandmaster at the U.S. Open in 1999. There's actually a long story about that. In 1999, the World Chess Championship was in Vegas, if you can call it a World Championship. It was a knockout. It was when Kasparov and Short were hiding from FIDE and against them and vice versa. And FIDE was having these knockout tournaments to decide who the world champion was. They had one in Vegas with virtually no spectators, even though they had like 128 players. And I think Halifman won. I think that's the one he won. And a lot of grandmasters were there playing. And when they got knocked out, they would go to the U.S. Open, which was in Reno, at the same time. And they would take a half-point bye or 2 half-point byes or whatever. And this guy actually played in the World Championship. He got knocked out in round 1 or 2. He's from Uruguay. His name's Rodriguez, which doesn't really narrow it down too much. He's one of the 3 or 4 highest-rated Rodriguezes in the world. He could be the highest, but he wasn't here. He was 2,500 FIDE here, which I was. Now, then he later became like 2,570. And he was clearly the best or second-best player in Uruguay for 10, 15, 20 years. Maybe he still is. Okay. So I played my queen. This is also in 99, and this is a couple of months after the previous game. Okay, so rook g1. So far, so good. This is the same as the last game I showed you. And now white played king b1, following my rule. Always play king b1. And if you remember the last game, which you probably don't, white played g5. Okay. And I played knight takes b3. He took with the a pawn, which again, I don't think that's right, but okay. I played b5. He played f4. Bishop d7 and g5. Okay, now I played a very long, complicated sequence which led to equality, which is probably right, but I haven't checked with an engine in 20 years, so I don't know. Okay, so I played b4. Knight a2 looks a little passive, so he played knight a4. And now after we trade everything, I played e5. I was afraid to take this pawn. I guess the computer's even more afraid than I am. Because I was afraid of positions like this. White could play bishop f6. And I wasn't sure how to handle that. And even if I defend my bishop, sometimes he can play queen h5 and queen h6 and really get a big attack going. It's hard to take any of his pieces with my g-pawn because I'm getting mated down the g-file. So I was really worried about getting attacked over here. And I thought I would put an end to that. Again, I told you, I don't care so much about material. I care more about not getting checkmated. So I played e5, and this just trades everything. Takes, 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 bishop c5. Bishop c5 attacks his rook on g1 and attacks his bishop on e5. So he played bishop d4. Takes, takes, takes. And I've traded everything. Neither one of our kings is too dangerously placed because we've traded so many pieces. And okay, he has an isolated pawn. So, okay, something. All right, and I think the computer says it's equal, although I was almost losing about 3 moves later. Okay, so he played e5, and he wants to play e6. And I very stupidly thought that e6 was nothing. So I guess I was more cocky in 99. Now I'm more afraid. But, okay, I guess if you're married 3 times, you start getting afraid. All right, so I played a5, saying like e6 doesn't matter. He played e6. I'm like, that doesn't matter. Probably I should take on e6. Although I probably should have allowed e6. I played queen c6. And now I thought to myself, after my opponent's next move, what an idiot. He played e7. I said, oh, what a terrible move. And after rook e8, I was like, man, I'm going to win that e-pawn. I'm going to attack his king with the queenside pawns. That's a terrible move. Ugh, almost as bad as you guys. So one of the things I espouse now when I teach chess is the pawn in the 7th rank. When you have a pawn in the 7th rank in the middle game, that's worth like 9 queens. Okay, they should start an organization called Pawn in the 7th rank. It can compete with 9 queens. Okay, 9 Queens is an organization, by the way, that you've never heard of, but you can look it up on the internet. I think it's 9queens.com. All right, so he played rook e1, and I immediately realized how stupid I was. That is actually something that differentiates a lot of strong players from not so strong players. We change our mind a lot when we're presented with more information. So if I think I have a good game, and then I rethink after a move is played, I might think that I'm losing, and vice versa. And here I correctly evaluate it as I'm never going to win his E-pawn, and my game sucks. Okay, so now I went into crazy mode. And again, I've been married 3 times, so that's easy to do. Although, at this point in time, let's see, when was this? This was August 99. So, yeah, I'd been divorced, wow, for like 5 months, maybe less. Okay, so I was still in crazy mode, and I played the move B3. Normally, I wouldn't just give a pawn away, but I thought I had to muddy the waters. B3 is not a bad move. Okay, he took on B3, and I played Queen G6 check. So I'd rather have a weird position that's bad for me than one that's just bad for me. And now he blundered because he thought his move won immediately. If he just plays something like KG2, I think he's something like plus 0.6. Maybe he's not winning, but it's obviously good for white because white has a pawn on the 7th. And instead he made a move that loses immediately. And again, we talked about this in previous videos, but you weren't listening, so listen this time. When you guys play chess, it's like plus 6, and that's because you're down a rook, and every legal move wins for your opponent. When grandmasters play chess and it says plus 6, that's because somebody missed something, and there's a move that's plus 6, and every other move is equal or bad. And that's what happened this game. So when I'm watching the super grandmasters play in Reykjavik, and in Grenke, and in Zurich, and everywhere around the world, sometimes the engine says some huge number, and that's because somebody probably missed something. And then when you play that move, they're like, oh yeah. And if you didn't play that move, it would just be an equal position. So here, he blundered with Queen E4. So if I don't play the winning move, then actually white's winning. So his move is fine, except that he missed my move. If I play any normal move, like Queen G5 or Queen E4, okay, like Queen G5 just loses immediately to Queen takes A8, okay, for example. And if I trade queens, I'm down a pawn and he has a pawn on the 7th. Horrible, okay? So he thought Queen E4 won. So pause your video and find the winning move for black. Okay, and some of you who watch all my videos already know the answer, and some of you figured it out. Now, what's funny about this is the watching all my videos crack. On Twitter today, somebody posted on John Bartholomew's Twitter feed that he finally watched all of Bartholomew's videos on the internet, 1,200 of them. And John responded with, I hope that you enjoyed that and you learned something. Okay, and I don't have 1,200 on the internet. I have about maybe 60 on this page. I have about 110 on the St. Louis site. And I've made some videos for ICC and chess.com and chesskid.com, but it's not 1,200. Okay, so the winning move for black is rook takes e7. And I remember when I played rook takes e7, how upset he was. Very upset. He put his head down and he shook his head like, what world am I in? Instantly knowing that the game's over. He can't take either one of my rooks because it's queen spinned. He can't allow rook takes queen. And if he moves his queen, I take his rook on e1. And he doesn't have a lot of squares to move his queen because his queen's pinned. So if he takes my queen, for example, I check. He gets out of check, and then I take his queen. So I'm up a rook. So after rook takes e7, he loses his passed e-pawn and a rook. So that's a terrible blunder for a grandmaster. And, it was probably because he thought he was winning, and he wasn't careful. And he was very upset, of course. And that can change the game. One bad move, and chess is a little unfair that way. Chess is tough. You make one bad move, you ruin everything. I've done it plenty of times, so have you. Sometimes you're a recipient. Okay, last game is my favorite. It was played against A. Liang. Not a Wonder Liang, because then I wouldn't have won. But it was against Albert Liang, who's a local player here in the metro Atlanta area. This was actually played in Atlanta, in the city of Atlanta, in one of the few Goichberg tournaments here, CCA. Okay, and I play Queen E8. He's about 2150. He's actually a kid. I thought he was maybe in college, but I think he was like 14 or 15. I think I misjudged his age. Okay, and he played king b1 right away. G4 was played in the other games. b5, f3 is a really bad move. And I know you guys are like, oh, he always says f3 is a bad move. You guys have funny voices. f3 is a really bad move. It has nothing to do with the position at all. There's two ideas for white to attack my king. One is to play f4, like my last opponent, and g4. And one is to play g4, g5, queen h5, like my first opponent. f3 ensures that white has no attack on the king side. His queen can never get to g4 or h5 or anywhere. He can never play f4 without losing a tempo. His e-pawn wasn't attacked. f3 is a really bad move. Also, I think king b1 is a bad move because he was probably worried I'd play b4 and knight takes e4 here. So I think king b1 is just bad. Okay, f3 is also bad. Bishop d7. Now, bishop d7 looks pretty innocuous. And since you don't know what innocuous means, that's very confusing to you. But yeah, well, it just looks staid. Okay, now you know what I mean. Bishop d7 looks like I'm developing a piece because I'm developing a piece. But if you remember earlier in the lecture, one of the ideas of queen e8 was to defend a4. Now I'm really defending a4. So if it was my turn, he was worried I would play knight takes d4, and then if I played b4, actually, I'm sorry, I played b4 first. If I played b4, his knight has nowhere to go because he played king b1. And when he goes to a4, I just play knight takes knight and win a piece. For example, let's play an attacking move. b4, knight a4, knight takes d4, and then I win the knight on a4. That was what I was trying to say. Okay, so bishop d7 actually threatens to win a piece. He played queen f2. This gives his knight a retreat square on e2. Takes, a5. I didn't play a5 right away because then my b5 pawn is hanging. So I defend my b5 pawn. Then I play a5. And if you know a good way to stop a4 and b4, you're a better player than I am. Then you might be. He's losing even though it looks like he's just playing normally. It looks like normal Sicilian position. But I'm attacking his king and he's not attacking mine. So already I think the game's over. Well, a4 wins a piece. And the two ways that stop it are a4 and a3. And they're both just horrible. a4 loses a pawn. I can take it. I can play b4. So he played a3, letting me open up the a file. But I don't know what to suggest. I played e5 and bishop e6, which I did in the other game. Yeah, if my queen gets to a4, that's going to be pretty cool. Okay, he played knight c1, which is reasonable. I played rook a6, so I can double or triple on the a file. Takes, queen e2 attacking my rook. Queen a4 threatening queen a1 mate and defending my rook. Knight b3 stopping mate. Okay, and I tell all of my students that you want everything to get into the attack. And a lot of people, when they see the queen and rook lined up, they don't care about the rest of their pieces because queen and rook looks pretty good. But I have a lot of other things I can do. And a lot of you don't like double pawns because you're weak. And double pawns in the center are excellent. And often double pawns are just reasonable. But here, it's better to have double pawns than not because I can advance in the center. And so I played rook c8, improving my rook. And now I'm threatening to win a piece. For example, let's play a stupid move, h3. I play check, and I take the knight because his rook on c8 is doing a good job. So he has to defend his knight. He played rook to d3. And as I said earlier with my great pawns, I played d5. So I always get something new into the attack. Actually, my idea was to play d4 and then rook c3 sacking my rook to try to get at his king, which is actually good. So he blundered here, although I'm already winning. I have a big attack, and obviously my king is perfectly safe. He played bishop g5. The bishop's not defended on g5, so now I have a forced win. I don't know, normally I would say pause your video and find the forced win, but probably everything wins. This wins the most. You can pause your video if you want. There's a nice tactic here that wins. Okay, so knight takes e4, and the idea is if I start checking him on the a file, his king can run away. But now his king can't run away because my knight on e4 is defending d2. I mean, if two grandmasters were playing here, he'd resign. But, okay, he played on almost to the bitter end he took. I can't suggest anything better. And now I have mate. And he resigned, which is silly. You should get mated when you're getting mated in 1. That makes more sense. Guy sacrifices his queen, you should let him mate you. So after queen a1 check, he resigned. That was my favorite game in this line because my king was always perfectly safe, which is always a worry when you castle opposite sides. And I had attack on the a file and the c file, which is just your dream. And I played a5, a4, b4. I mean, I did everything I wanted to do. So I even played the Sicilian d5 move. I mean, I did all kinds of tactics and tricks that you want to do in the Sicilian, and my king was safe. And he made a lot of subpar moves like f3 and king b1 and bishop g5, which led to me winning relatively easily. Okay, so that was the Velimirovic attack video. Unfortunately, for those of you who want to have white, black won all those games, but I played black in the Velimirovic, sorry. And I did lose to Sam Savian in a really interesting game, so I'll make a video about that. That's going to take a whole video, though, because that was too interesting. Possibly, I made the video already a year or two ago at the St. Louis Club, I'm not sure. But I got beat pretty badly at the end, but the beginning was pretty interesting. Okay, I'll see all you guys at the Super Nationals. If you show up, come say hi. Bring your donation checks. Okay, good job. ATLChessClub.com, ATLChessClub.com/donate, but don't slash me. Go to my Facebook page, go to my Twitter page, and like everything, and subscribe to my YouTube, and do all that stuff I always tell you. And do as I say. Rawr. And the Georgia State Championship is this weekend. I'm not going to play, but I'll be the highest rated spectator. I think Grandmaster Zapata is playing, so there'll be another Grandmaster there. So if you live locally, I'll see you this weekend. If you don't, I'll probably see you at the Super Nationals. They're going to get probably about 5,800 kids playing and maybe 3,000 adults, hanging around. So I guess if you want to eat after your round, you're out of luck. All right, see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.